Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. It's great to be with you this beautiful Wednesday morning. Today is November 19th, 2025. We get together most weekday mornings at 8 o'clock Central. Next week, the week of Thanksgiving, we will not have any morning Zooms next week, and then we'll resume the following week. But today we have a really important topic to go through, and it is to offer some additional clarification, understanding, and maybe even appreciation. So, we're looking at two graphics here on my shared screen, neither of which are new, but I do want to help each of us understand how they interface. So let's go over to the right-hand side. We put this together several weeks ago, back when Madison switched into her new role of working with people with their business credit profile, back when Valerie first came aboard and started handling the first tranche funding, and back when Monica first came aboard and started handling the liquidation. So, this I think is a really helpful sheet, but let's dig into it a little bit deeper. The first element that I want you to be aware of are the phases. Phase one, phase two. Phase one is when a client comes to you, if you're a reseller, and they buy a shelf corp from you. Now, technically, we give the shelf corps away for free. They're paying a processing fee, but ignoring all the semantics and details. Phase one is where they're getting a shelf corp and those related deliverables. It used to be the shelf corp was freestanding. Then we rolled out the ESP, the Entrepreneur Starter Pack, which is the shelf corp with the 20,000 quick cash. That's really what this reflects. But in either case, think of phase one as when they're getting the shelf corp. So let's go through what's involved with phase one. So if you're a reseller, then you have created some sort of community awareness, did some sort of marketing outreach, and you have someone that has come to you because it's a white label, it's a private label model, and they have signed a contract with you to get the free shelf corp. So with that, that's essentially step zero, not shown. But then what happens is, since we're your back office, we're your implementation team, once we're aware of it, now we're going to go ahead and set up their shelf corp. So I'm personally responsible for that. We do that once you've let us know that the client is under contract and has paid. And again, it's your contract as a reseller they're signing. It's you that's receiving the payment from the client for that. So what happens at that point? Then we're going to get the entity in their name, the business plan in their name. It's kind of like a business in a box. Also the 20,000 of quick cash. So we need about 7 days to implement this, but we're going to start it on day one. So again, if someone's just coming in to get a free funding proposal, that doesn't happen until phase two. So we're not to this yet. This is if you're going to go out to the market, offer the shelf corps. So then what happens right after that, and that's why it's 1A and 1B, what will happen right after that is then Madison, our funding coordinator, is going to reach out to the grant participant and ask a question. Hey, do you want to use the free commercial address that we provide, or do you have a different address that they're going to use? If they're going to use their own address, that's okay. But we need to look at how that address is set up and does it meet lender criteria for funding. We had a gentleman, well, two gentlemen, they're partners yesterday. Instead of wanting to use the lease, the address that we provide for free, all the clients pay, the grant participants pay is mail forwarding. But instead of using the address that we provide, they went out and got a different lease. Well, that's their prerogative, but we need to make sure that the lease, the address on file for that entity that we're doing the capital raise is going to meet what the lenders want to see. If not, we're not going to guarantee funding because they're altering the model. So they don't have to use our address. We provide them a commercial address free. All they pay for is the mail forwarding. And so that's going to happen right away. So even before the Shelf Corp docs are delivered, well, why is that? Why don't we just give them what they paid for right away? Well, think about it. We need to know what address is going to be used. How do we have an entity formation document without an address? How do we create a business plan without an address? How do we get them an EIN without an address? You can't. So the address is a variable. It's built into the model. There's no cost for the address. Again, they just pay for the mail forwarding. But we need to know, are you going to use the address we provide, or is there some other address? 99% of the people use the address we provide because it's free, except for the mail forwarding. So with that, then we need normally about 7 days, and so that's what's referenced here to actually deliver the Shelf Corp documents. So phase one is designed to be taken care of in about a week. It is only applicable if you are acting as a reseller, which is a white label, private label. There's a processing fee that you collect. You get to determine the processing fee and so forth. So that's phase one. Does everyone understand phase one? If not, type it into the Q&A. We'll dig into it. Then what I want to do is move over to phase two. So the free funding proposal is phase two. Now, people can come directly in and get a funding proposal, or they could be a continuation of those that got a Shelf Corp. So let's go through the remaining steps here, which matches on both sides now. So once they have that Shelf Corp that we've delivered, if they're using our Shelf Corp, if not, then they can come right in here on day 8, which of course would be day 1 if they didn't get a Shelf Corp from us. And then this is where Valerie is going to work with them. So they're going to have filled out a one-page application. So that one-page application comes with the Shelf Corp deliverables if they got a Shelf Corp, or if they didn't get a Shelf Corp, it's actually their entry point in to the free funding proposal. So it's a one-page app that they fill out. All these elements we've been talking about are still true. But specifically, then that's going to allow us to get them first tranche offers. We've had highlights, success stories, explanations of, we've had people that 10, 100,000, 200,000 or more. Everyone gets at least one offer. The offers they get is based on their baseline credibility. But essentially, the first tranche is what we're talking about here on step 3, which is the first activity under phase 2, and Valerie quarterbacks that. So again, if they have a Shelf Corp, they've been coming on down through the steps. If they didn't get a Shelf Corp and they just came in for a free funding proposal, then this is where we start. Now, with the free funding proposal, there's no upfront cost, there's no hard inquiries, and that is facilitated by our team of affiliates. So you could be a reseller, which really means Shelf Corp reseller, and offer phase 1. And or you could be an affiliate who does phase 2. But phase 2 operates the same regardless if they got a Shelf Corp from us or not. I think that's where there was some confusion. So this is phase 2, the funding proposal process. It's just it can be accessed directly versus having to go through the Shelf Corp. I see the question that Amanda asked, so what should you do? Should you go out and offer Shelf Corp? Should you go out and just offer free funding proposals? That's up to you, Amanda, and to everyone else. But I think that you might find the most success if you went out under the affiliate platform offering the free funding proposals, because alternatively, if someone's going to start with phase 1 and get a Shelf Corp from you, there is a processing fee that is paid up front, that is paid out of pocket. Nothing wrong with that. That's how most things work in our society. But that does require more commitment, more trust by the client. So what many of you are doing is you're skipping phase 1 initially, going out to the marketplace with the free funding proposal proposition, bringing them in here. Valerie will work with them on what offers they get, and they can accept one or multiple offers. Typically, people will get 20, 30, 40, 50,000. People could get more, they could get less. Everyone gets at least one. What could happen then is now your client has their first round of funding, what we call first tranche of funding. They have money in their pocket from the process. Then, if you wanted to come back and offer them a shelf corp for their capital raise, you could do so. They don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. But I'm explaining that essentially the order of these two could be reversed. Now, we can't go get funding, business funding, if we don't have a fundable business, right? We talk about that all the time, and that's in fact on this graphic here. If you want business funding, you need to have a fundable business. That fundable business infrastructure can come from a shelf corp that our resellers can provide in phase one, or it might be simply a business that the grant participant already has. Doesn't matter to us. Can't skip the step of having a business to get business funding, but it could either be a shelf corp or not a shelf corp. So then what happens is Valerie quarterbacks getting them their first tranche of funding. And so now they've got liquidity, they've got money in their pocket. So then it comes back to Madison, who works with them on building out their business credit profile. And we've had separate standalone trainings on that. But the concept is we want the business to look strong. We want it to have trade lines that report that shows that it pays its bills. And by having those payment experiences through those trade lines, it creates a strong paydex score, which is a numerical score between 1 and 100 that Dun& Bradstreet offers. Our goal is to get at least an 80, which is stated here. So what Madison's going to do then is help them build up their business credit profile by adding trade lines. There are different types of trade lines. There's everything from company cars, like our pictures there, company credit cards, company lines of credit. There's types of trade lines that require a personal guarantee. There are others that don't require a personal guarantee. Lots of different options. But Madison's going to help them with that step. So Madison's the same Madison up here. She's involved with the commercial setup, which is pretty easy, just explaining to them, hey, do you want to use our address or your address, assuming they're coming through phase one. If they're not coming through phase one, uh, we can either go back to phase one and get them in a shelf corp or not. But regardless, Madison is working with them on this process. Because of our growth, it has helped us to have different people responsible for different steps in the process. And we're pretty adherent to that. So sometimes what will happen is, a client's working with Madison on this step, but then they want to reach out to Valerie, or they want to reach out to me, or they want to reach out to Monica. Well, if they're on step 4A, they need to be working with whatever step they're on, they need to be working with the assigned staff. Step 4B, which is the last step before we go for the large funding, is coordinated by Monica. Monica is also one of our new attorneys, and she focuses on liquidating the AR for our clients to turn their AR into cash to create those daily bank deposits. So Monica has her specific role, and Valerie has her specific role. Ultimately, what's the goal? Rather, they're coming through both phases or not. The goal, of course, is to get them funding. So it comes back to this process here. So this red box on the left is describing what we do in phase two, regardless if they went through phase one or not. So let's go back over and make sure we're clear on that. So we've already talked about the funding proposal, which is what Valerie manages. Then we get into building out the business fundability. And just like we've talked ad nauseum, it comes down to having a fundable business, which can be summarized as the 3 C's. So how do we accomplish that? How is this all possible? How is it realistic? How is it guaranteed? Well, we're going to work with them to add trade lines under the business, under the EIN, and we've talked about that, and that's a specific breakout step here. We're going to transfer assets to them so they have collateral for their balance sheet. That's built into the process automatically. And then if they want, they don't have to have us do this, but almost everyone does, then we can also help them liquidate their AR to create bank deposits. And again, that is what Monica does. So the three C's are built in. The end goal is funding, and the amount of funding that the client wants is up to them. And we call that blank check financing. It's not meant to be cutesy, it's just essentially recognizing we go to the client and we ask the client, how much funding do you need? And what are you going to use it for? Which is technically called the uses of funds. So once we know that, along with their other mitigating circumstances, then we can do the building. This middle column here is where the rubber hits the road, right? It's not so complicated to get people a funding proposal. And it's not so complicated to get people funding or businesses funding once they're fundable, once they're qualified. The real secret sauce, the real meat of the matter is this middle column is where we're building out their business to qualify. Because just because you have a business doesn't mean you're going to qualify for large amounts. We have to pay attention to the three C's, which we take care of. So the end goal is to work with a client, whether they're coming through phase one and two, or if they're only coming through phase two, which is the funding proposal, is to get them funding. As far as dollar amounts, we get this question all the time. Well, how much funding can you get? Well, it's up to the client. You know, it's their business, it's their needs that we're meeting. We're going to develop legally and ethically the documentation to support the capital raise that they want. We don't really want to do capital raises less than 100,000 because that's how the grant was set up. So I guess there's technically not a minimum, but we really don't want to go below 100,000. People ask a lot about maximum, and there technically is no maximum. I mean, we have to qualify for whatever we get. We understand it's not too good to be true. We mentioned 50 million because that's normally the largest deals we've done. We've done a 50 million, we recently did a 49 million, but theoretically it could go higher than that. But that's the normal range. Most of our deals are in that $1 to $3 million range. So, with that being said, I want to open it up to questions. I've spent 17 or so minutes trying to paint a picture using these two graphics so you understand the process and how the free funding proposal fits in. The free funding proposal is really phase two. This is what we do in phase two. Clients could participate in phase one, getting a shelf corp or not. Resellers offer phase one, affiliates offer phase two. Can you be both a reseller and an affiliate? Yes. Do you have to be? No, you could be one or the other. Questions, comments, concerns. We have 629 of you on. Any questions about the process? Now, we do have on our website, 509pacific.org, there's a whole training video on our website that goes through this in more detail than the summary. So if you have a client that just doesn't understand, you could play that video for them. You could use an editable version of this that's white label with your information and explain it. But I think this is really important to help people understand the anticipated timeline, the phases, and the steps. Because what we never want is a client to say, I don't know where I'm at, or I don't know what I'm doing. They should know where they're at in the process, and then they should know who they're assigned to work with. Okay, Matthew's asking about the reseller comp. So let's talk about compensation in general. So our resellers, if you want to become a reseller, you can become a reseller on 509pacific.org. Down near the bottom of the page is the link to get set up as a reseller. So a reseller now, which has changed over time, but now means that you're offering the ESP, the Entrepreneur Starter Pack. It's providing, in summary, what we've outlined right here. We're providing each grant participant a business entity that we'll be using for funding. We provide them each a business plan. We provide them each financial projections. We provide them an EIN, and we provide them 20,000 of quick cash. If you're not entirely familiar about quick cash, again, there's a standalone training about it that you'll find also on the homepage of 509 Pacific. So resellers offer this. How are resellers paid? Which is Matthew's question, I believe. Resellers can charge a processing fee to transfer that shelf corp and this set of deliverables, and you as a reseller pick how much that is. So you determine what you make on the front end, and then resellers make 5% of the client's capital raise. I think what Matthew's concerned about, which is a good point, but it's not a problem. So let's say Matthew's a reseller. He gets someone into phase one. And so he knows the client's coming into phase one because he's the one that signed the agreement with them, right? Because phase one is a white label, private label. This is a contract signed with the reseller and paid to the reseller. So with that, then if a client comes in phase one, they'll go into phase two just seamlessly, just automatically. There's not some hurdle that they have to jump through. There's not something that you as a reseller need to do. They'll flow on through. So there's a break in the arrows representing the difference between the agreement they have with you to get the shelf corp and then the funding process, which is described here, but you don't have to do anything. If you refer them in on phase one, they'll automatically go into phase two. And then, yes, Matthew, you make 5% of the client's capital raise, which any of you that are familiar with the industry, that's a very generous payout. They call it 5 points. So if the client has $1 million capital raise, you're getting 50,000. If the client has a $2 million capital raise, you're getting 100,000. So that percentage, that level is very attractive. That's higher than what's normally available in the marketplace. So yes, Matthew, if you fed someone in on phase one, we'll do these deliverables, and then yes, you'll automatically qualify for the funding, and you won't have to go get them into the second phase. We'll take care of that procedurally. Okay, and then Mark's asking about talking with Monica. So Monica is very busy because she's working on litigation for collections for our clients, our grant participants, and we'll be adding more staff that'll be working under Monica's lead in the near future. No, you all can't just go call Monica, because if you all are calling Monica, then her and soon to be her team are not working the debts that they're assigned to work. So if you need an update there, what you can do is simply give us a call on either number. This is the number on the for-profit side. This is the phone number on the nonprofit side, and let us know. But as soon as we started having Monica do client consultations, then her production would take a dip. We don't want that. We want Monica focused on collecting the money from those debtors because that's what our clients are expecting. We do plan on hiring like a legal secretary as we add more attorneys to Monica's department that will be an interface, though. All right. Matthew's asking for a white label version of this training. Well, I don't have a white label version of this training, Matthew. I'm doing the training live today on Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. So to the best of my knowledge, this is the only version. Now, to the extent that you want to take these materials and rebrand them and use them differently and create your own materials, you can. But if you're just an affiliate, we generally are now recommending that people that are interested in working with us to help people and make money just start as an affiliate. Just keep it real simple. So all you would need to do is you'll get a free landing page as an affiliate. It'll look just like fundingproposal.org. It collects four pieces of information: first name, last name, email, phone. So you'll have your own landing page, no cost to be an affiliate, and you'll just drive people to your landing page. We'll take care of everything, and it keeps it real simple. So for any of you that are new or thinking about collaborating, that's where I'd recommend. The ESP reseller, the reseller role, is more involved because it's again white label, it's private label, it's your contract, it's you doing the billing and collections. It's more complicated. And we've had a number of people that tried to be a reseller and they just really weren't a good fit. So in general, we recommend everyone start as an affiliate, free, easy, painless, good income. And then if you can prove yourself there, then we can move into more advanced roles. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Corinthians asking a question. So again, scheduling. So yes, we'll have trainings today, Wednesday, of course, we're having it now. Thursday and Friday of this week. We won't have any live Zooms next week because of Thanksgiving break, and then we'll be back to normal Zoom schedule right the week after Thanksgiving. Thank you, Corinthian, for bringing that up. Uh, Gilbert's bringing up a point. Yeah, yesterday we had a really good training. We talked about how to get referrals. Frankly, how to get unlimited referrals without buying leads. And that was yesterday's training. So we've had a lot of positive feedback. Yeah, we talked about how to use Craigslist for that. So if you're not familiar with that, didn't see yesterday's training, you can go on our YouTube channel and see yesterday's training. So if there's an interest in collaborating, there's an interest in earning income, but you don't have the people to work with, we figured that out and there's no cost. And that was yesterday's training. Have any of you that are on the training live today started to implement that process that we trained on yesterday? Out of 627 of you, just a quick yes or no in the Q&A. Have any of you attempted to leverage the process, the technique that we talked about yesterday? And if so, just how did it go? Uh, Benita says yes, and she already had 5 or 7 referrals yesterday, so that's great. Rod has started it, Donovan, yeah, so a number of you have. It makes sense. You go fishing where the fish are. But again, I don't want to revisit that from the ground up. But certainly, there's lots of ways to go out and create awareness because what we're doing is we're creating wealth injections into communities. Wealth injections. So, what you and I are doing is going out and helping entrepreneurs have access to 100,000, a million plus in funding to start or grow a business. They have no out-of-pocket cost for them to go through this grant subsidized program. So this is changing lives at an individual level, but you certainly should feel empowered to reach out to pastors, to bankers, to chambers of commerce, to other key influencers. You should have the ability to connect your hose to a running faucet to be able to start working with key influencers that'll help drive in significant or even massive volume into this proposition. This is a bulletproof proposition. Guaranteed results for the participant, literally no out-of-pocket cost for the average client, for the typical client, as we described yesterday. Henry and a couple others are saying you need a landing page. So how do you get set up as an affiliate? Doesn't cost anything. You're going to go to fundingproposal.org and you're going to fill out that same app just like anyone else would. First name, last name, email, phone, and that's going to take you over to the funding proposal page. To be an affiliate, there's 2 ways to become an affiliate. Doesn't cost anything. One way is go through the process yourself. Go through at least step 1, get your offers, accept an offer, show that you're a success story. So that's the preferred scenario. That's scenario 1. If you don't want to do that for whatever reason, then you can refer in your first client, not more than one, but just refer in your first client to fundingproposal.org. We'll take them through the same process. We'll make a success story out of them where they've gotten offers, they've accepted funding. And once you had one person come in to the system, whether it be you or someone you referred in. Then we can get you set up as an affiliate at no cost. Then you'll have your own landing page, and then everything you'll be able to really blast off. But anyone that's needing a landing page, what you need to do is either yourself or have a delegate, a surrogate, go to fundingproposal.org. And as long as you complete this first step, then bam, we can see that you have the capability, the willingness, the competency to follow the model. Over the years, we spend a lot of time giving away free landing pages and free resources to people that didn't have the willingness or commitment. So we're not asking you to pay anything, and individually you don't have to participate, but either you or someone you need to initiate to bring through at least step one of this three-step process to prove that you're capable. And so I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to insult you, but a lot of people want free, but they don't plan on doing anything with it, or they don't have the ability to do anything with it. We've got to protect our time and resources. All right, so with that, hopefully everyone's clear on phase one versus phase two, how it all fits together, and really the recommendation start out as an affiliate. Doesn't cost you anything, very easy proposition, and we will move forward. See you all tomorrow morning. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye bye.